Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt-out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today we're exploring behaviour, and wow, I have a long history with that word. I guess personally, many years of trying to change behaviour. I guess for me, a lot of it around food, a lot of attempts to use my steely determination to not eat things that I didn't think were good for me and that were making me heavier than I wanted to be. So there was a long relationship with it there. And I guess as a primary school teacher and head teacher, an awful lot of time spent on working out ways to modify children's behaviour, to reward them for good behaviour, to punish them for bad behaviour, obviously in a totally civilised way, but withdrawing playtimes and getting children to sit and contemplate. And as a head teacher, I would often have a group of interesting young men, shall we say, primary school boys who had been up to mischief and were sat at the back of my office thinking about their behaviour. And we're doing it all the time, and whether it's the New Year's resolution to go to the gym, or it is the control of our eating, or it's I'd like to be better in this relationship, I'd like to do better things in my business. It goes on and on and on, doesn't it? This attempt to modify our behaviour. But we're looking in the wrong place. It's knowing that behaviour is the output of our system. That's the last thing that happens. And I love this metaphor that I don't even know where I got, but it's like if you arrive at the river and you're part of some environmental project to clean up the river, and you're in the river and you're pulling all the rubbish out to clean up the river, but you look upstream and there's just more and more rubbish coming down, and you keep going with your steely determination, and you're absolutely shattered, but you're still stood in the river in your galoshes. Are they called galoshes, those really long wellies? I think they are. And you keep on pulling the rubbish out of the river. And then some bright spark in the group of people you're in says, well, should we go and see where the rubbish is coming from? And when you get out and walk up the river, you find that actually what's happened is that there's a pipe, a big, massive, those builders pipe things, and it's just been knocked away from the skip. It's supposed to be going in a skip, and the skips get collected and all the rubbish is supposed to be taken away, but somehow the pipe has been knocked over the river instead of over the skip. So actually, all you need to really do is move the pipe back, clean up the rest of the rubbish that's in the river, and then you'll be done. And really, that's because that is going upstream to find out how it's working. How it's working is something is spewing rubbish into the system. Now, your system is a little bit different because the rubbish that's in your system is already there. Sorry to tell you, it really is. You have been conditioned, you've learnt things, your way of behaving and what you're doing right now is not something that you decide. There's no deciding self, because the self is the self that's doing the deciding. It's the same collection of thinking. Shall I eat the cake or shan't I eat the cake? Well, if it makes sense you'll eat the cake. But this is where this conversation is so powerful. Because really, the reason why we do anything, the behaviour that we do on a day-to-day basis, we do it because of where we think our feelings are coming from. It's actually that simple. If I think my awful feeling that I have right now, the feeling of stress, let's say, can be solved by eating a piece of cake, then clearly I'm going to eat the piece of cake. That's the outside-in paradigm in which most human beings live. I still live in it some of the time, by the way, because I forget. But that's not really, like when I say paradigm, that's an understanding of how life works. It's not the truth. So that's the problem. That's the problem, is we're misunderstanding the whole system and how it works. Like mind-blowingly so. So if we have an uncomfortable, stressed out feeling, but we know that that uncomfortable, stressed out feeling is coming from uncomfortable, stressed out thought in the moment, then it makes less sense to eat cake. Because fundamentally what usually happens when we eat the cake is we feel more stressed out because we feel guilty and awful about ourselves for eating the cake. This is not saying don't eat cake, by the way. It's not saying don't eat cake. It's about understanding why you're eating the cake. Not really why you're eating it, but what you think it's going to achieve for you in the world. That's the misunderstanding. The misunderstanding is about where you think your feelings are coming from. And you look at every single element of our behaviour as human beings, from the most trivial things of eating cake and chocolate to subdue a feeling, to the awful things, the awful behaviour, and I'm not going to mince my words on it. There are some people in the world right now doing some awful things to other people. All of it comes from the same misunderstanding. It looks like our feelings are coming from the outside world. If it looks like that, then it makes perfect sense to do things in the outside world to try and create a different feeling for ourselves. And it means it's so much simpler than it looks. Because the alternative in terms of behaviour change is your conditioned thinking trying to change the behaviour that's coming from your conditioned thinking. Well, that is like trying to do your own brain surgery. Not advisable, by the way. It's not. You can't. That's why it's so hard. That's why it feels so hard. And you've probably noticed that when behaviour suddenly changes, it is because you have changed how you see it. And then the behaviour seems to naturally fall away. And that's what I've noticed about this conversation. People's behaviour changes. Not because they have forced it to change, but because they understand how their system, they're upstream, and they understand how their system works. They understand that the feelings that they're having in the moment are coming from their state of mind. If there's a riled up, stressed out state of mind, that riled up, stressed out thinking is very unlikely to have anything of any use for us. And the thought is what leads to the behaviour, of course. When we realise that the riled up thinking, the stressed out thinking, is coming from thought in the moment, it's coming from our state of mind, it means we've stepped away from our calm and clarity and sanity, actually. And then it makes sense, usually, to do a lot less. For me, it usually, when I see it, when I in the moment see, this is my thinking, this feeling is it's telling me about my off state of mind. It usually makes sense, and this is my doing, this is not your doing. When I see it, it makes sense to do quite a lot less than if I think that feeling is coming from somewhere else. If I think the feeling's coming from the other person, for example, I need to say something to them, shout at them, get upset with them, say something mean maybe. When I see that that feeling is coming from me, it makes sense to shut my mouth, if I'm honest, to pause, take a few minutes. Sometimes it makes sense to just have a breath, and it just passes on its own then. And the behaviour doesn't happen at all. So yeah, don't try and change your behaviour is the message today. Understand how your system is working. That's all you need to do. Literally forever and ever. Just explore that. And as you understand it deeper, things will naturally change. Without you actually changing them. What a ton to take off your plate, eh? Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.